Hello, I'm Sir Andrew Davis, and I'm here to conduct the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra and the National Youth Orchestra of New Zealand in a performance of Éclairs sur l'au-delà by Messiaen, which means Illuminations of the Beyond.
So, what are the unique challenges of this piece?
Well, it's in 11 movements, and each movement has a kind of different orchestral component. So the whole orchestra plays together very little of the time, actually. So one of the problems is figuring out how to rehearse it so that you don't have half the orchestra sitting around bored to death. So we're having quite a lot of sectional rehearsals. You know, we've had string sectional rehearsals and everybody else sectional rehearsals, but also in the rehearsals where we're all, the whole orchestra's here, I'm going to try and plan it so that, you know, that the big things we do first and then some people can leave. So that's a sort of technical problem, sort of administrative problem about rehearsing it, I suppose. Yeah. And the other thing is it's long, and it has very complex rhythms at times, and actually one of my favorite movements is the third, which is it's entirely a portrait of the Australian lyrebird. Yeah. And the thing is, it goes very fast, but the whole orchestra's involved. So these quick phrases going backwards and forwards between the different sections, the woodwind, the brass, the percussion, the strings, and everybody's reactions have to be lightning to make it work. So, you know, this is the sort of thing where you rehearse it a bit slowly and then speed it up and hope I don't make a mistake, because the rhythms are very complicated. Yeah.
So, how do audience members usually respond to this work?
Well, I have to say I've only done it once before. I mean, it's not surprising that it doesn't get done that often because it's a huge orchestra. I mean, the 10 flutes and 10 clarinets, for instance. And lots of percussionists. So I did it, I think, in 1999 with the BBC Symphony Orchestra in London, and it was the opening concert of a big Messiaen weekend that we did. So we began with this, and we ended with his piece of much the same length called Turangalila, which is much better known and much more often performed. The audience loved it. It's a profoundly moving work, I think, and it starts. I mean, the end pieces are. It starts with a big sort of chorale for the brass and the woodwind, very slow moving but very majestic, and it's basically it's a kind of hymn in praise of Jesus. So it should have this sort of rather majestic glow about it. It's like looking at one of those medieval mosaics of the saints that you find in some Italian and Greek churches, you know, sort of iconic feeling to it. And then the last movement is basically just for the strings, and is a kind of a portrait of what paradise is like. So, you know, this l'au-delà means the beyond, and that's Messiaen was an extremely religious, devout Catholic in a way that is quite rare these days, very, very mystical. In fact, I remember I grew up in the early 50s. I bought something called the Oxford Companion to Music, which was a kind of music encyclopedia. And, you know, Messiaen wasn't anything. I think this came out in 1952 or something, and Messiaen hadn't achieved the kind of the status, perhaps, that he did very shortly after that, I would say. So this entry by a rather snooty British writer said, Olivier Messiaen is a religious mystic of the extremist type. Which killed me. But I've loved Messiaen for all my life, ever since I heard the first note, really. And I used to be an organist. So, and Messiaen is one of the greatest composers that organists have. And he wrote a lot of organ music. So I performed quite a lot of it over the years. This wonderful Christmas sequence called La Nativité du Seigneur, the birth of our Lord. There's another one called L'Ascension, about the Ascension, four-movement one, and then another one called the Messe de la Pentecôte, the Whitsun Mass. So there's an enormous amount of music for organ. And there's also chamber music. There's a famous quartet for the end of time for violin, cello, clarinet, and piano that he wrote actually in a prisoner of war camp in Germany during the Second World War. So, I mean, it's a fascinating person with an extraordinary history. And audiences, I think, immediately understand the special kind of atmosphere that his music, particularly this piece, conjures up. I mean, it was his last orchestral work, or his last work, really. And, you know, it has that feeling of somebody who was almost not here anymore, you know, that you feel his spirit has kind of already gone to the place that he's describing for us.
So is that what you love about Messiaen's music? Like, what is it that particularly sparks your interest in Messiaen?
Well, the colours are extraordinary. I mean, the way he uses the orchestra, the way he uses the organ is, you know, very few composers have used the organ with such imagination. And, you know, again, like the orchestral pieces, it goes from the most massive sort of textures to the most delicate kind of chamber music-y kind of, and very tender. You know, there's one movement in Eclair which is based on the text, and God shall wipe all tears from their eyes, and it's, oh God, I'm getting all choked up thinking about it. It's very simple, very, very moving, and very intimate, you know. And then you've got these big, enormous sort of portraits of and also he was very much interested in astronomy. So the fact that actually the score of the piece published has a picture of a galaxy on the front, and in fact he talks about various things. There's a sort of trill passage in the violas and cellos that he wants it to be like a nebula full of gas and dust and this. So he's constantly conjuring up these wonderful images, sort of visual images that through sound, you know. And he was very much, the other thing about Messiaen was he was fascinated by color, and certain chords and certain sounds actually evoked different colors for him. So a certain chord would be like orange, and another one would be deep blue, you know, which is, there have been a few, Scriabin, the composer, also had similar kind of feelings about color in relation to the different sounds of music, which is fascinating.
Yeah, that is. And so our final question is, how are you enjoying working with the NZSO and the NYO?
I'm having a ball, actually. You know, it's very hard work, and you know, there are a lot of notes to get, and they're very tricky rhythms, and but everyone seems very up for it. You know, I think, and I think that the two orchestras are really enjoying working together like this. And, you know, so in the string section we have all, you know, on each desk we have one NZSO player and one National Youth Orchestra player, and so it's and everyone certainly seems to be smiling a lot and very much getting into the collaboration. But I think all the piece, as I say, is very inspiring, and you know, everyone's enjoying getting over the hurdles of it, I think.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I'm having a terrific time. This is only my second time in New Zealand. The first time was in 2009. I had 3 weeks holiday here with my son, and we had the very best time. So I'm delighted to be back. I just wish I had time to actually do some more sightseeing and get around. But actually, we have, as you know, a very busy week. Concert here on Friday, and in Auckland on Saturday, and then I have to whiz off home to Chicago. So, but no, I think it's going to be great, and I'm loving every minute.